Bolivia, named after independence fighter Simon Bolivar, broke away from Spanish rule in 1825. Much of its subsequent history has consisted of a series of coups and counter-coups, with the last coup occurring in 1978. Democratic civilian rule was established in 1982, but leaders have faced difficult problems of deep-seated poverty, social unrest, and illegal drug production.
In December 2005, Bolivians elected Movement Towards Socialism leader Evo Morales president by the widest margin of any leader since the restoration of civilian rule in 1982, after he ran on a promise to change the country's traditional political class and empower the nation's poor, indigenous majority. In December 2009 and October 2014, President Morales easily won re-election. His party maintained control of the legislative branch of the government, which has allowed him to continue his process of change. In February 2016, Morales narrowly lost a referendum to approve a constitutional amendment that would have allowed him to compete in the 2019 presidential election. However, a 2017 Supreme Court ruling stating that term limits violate human rights has provided the justification for Morales to be chosen by his party to run again in 2019.
Bolivia summary.
Adobe PDF.
Geography.
Bolivia.
Location. Central South America, southwest of Brazil.
Geographic coordinates. 1700 S. 6500 W.
Map references. South America.
Area total.
1,098,581 square kilometers.
Land.
1,083,301 square kilometers.
Water.
15,280 square kilometers.
Country comparison to the world.
29.
Area comparative. Slightly less than 3 times the size of Montana.
Land boundaries. Total.
7,252 kilometers.
Border countries. 5.
Argentina 942 kilometers, Brazil 3,403 kilometers, Chile 942 kilometers, Paraguay 753 kilometers, Peru 1,212 kilometers.
Coastline. 0 kilometers. Landlocked.
Maritime claims. None. Landlocked.
Climate. Varies with altitude. Humid and tropical to cold and semi-arid.
Terrain. Rugged Andes mountains with a highland plateau. Altiplano. Hills. Lowland plains of the Amazon basin.
Elevation. Mean elevation.
1,192 m.
Elevation extremes.
90 m lowest point.
Rio Paraguay.
6,542 highest point.
Nevado Sajama.
Natural resources. Tin, natural gas, petroleum, zinc, tungsten, antimony, silver, iron, lead, gold, timber, hydropower.
Land use. Agricultural land.
34.3%.
Arable land.
3.6%. Permanent crops.
0.2%. Permanent pasture.
30.5%.
Forest.
52.5%.
Other.
13.2%.
Irrigated land. 3,000 square kilometers.
Population distribution. A high-altitude plain in the west between 2 cordillera of the Andes, known as the Altiplano, is the focal area for most of the population. A dense settlement pattern is also found in and around the city of Santa Cruz, located on the eastern side of the Andes.
Natural hazards. Flooding in the northeast. March to April.
Volcanism.
Volcanic activity in Andes Mountains on the border with Chile. Historically active volcanoes in this region are Iraputuncu, 5,163 meters, which last erupted in 1995, and the Olcaparuma volcanic complex, 5,762 meters to 5,167 meters.
Environment. Current issues. The clearing of land for agricultural purposes and the international demand for tropical timber are contributing to deforestation. Soil erosion from overgrazing and poor cultivation methods, including slash-and-burn agriculture, desertification, loss of biodiversity, industrial pollution of water supplies used for drinking and irrigation.
Environment. International agreements. Party 2.
Biodiversity, climate change Kyoto Protocol, desertification, endangered species, hazardous wastes, law of the sea, marine dumping, ozone layer protection, ship pollution, tropical timber 83, tropical timber 94, wetlands.
Signed, but not ratified.
Environmental modification, marine life conservation.
Geography. Note, landlocked. Shares control of Lago Titicaca, world's highest navigable lake, elevation 3,805 meters, with Peru.
People and society.
Bolivia.
Population 11,306,341.
Country comparison to the world.
80.
Nationality, noun.
Bolivian. S.
Adjective.
Bolivian.
Ethnic groups, mestizo, mixed white and Amerindian ancestry 68%, indigenous 20%, white 5%, Colo, Cola 2%, black 1%, other 1%, unspecified 3%. 44% of respondents indicated feeling part of some indigenous group, predominantly Quechua or Aymara.
Note:
Results among surveys vary based on the wording of the ethnicity question and the available response choices. The 2001 national census did not provide mestizo as a response choice, resulting in a much higher proportion of respondents identifying themselves as belonging to one of the available indigenous ethnicity choices. The use of mestizo and Colo varies among response choices in surveys, with surveys using the terms interchangeably, providing one or the other as a response choice, or providing the two as separate response choices.
Languages: Spanish, official, 60.7%, Quechua, official, 21.2%, Aymara, official, 14.6%, foreign languages 2.4%, Guarani, official, 0.6%, other native languages 0.4%, non-0.1%.
Note:
Bolivia's 2009 constitution designates Spanish and all indigenous languages as official. 36 indigenous languages are specified, including a few that are extinct.
Religions: Roman Catholic 76.8%, Evangelical and Pentecostal 8.1%, Protestant 7.9%, other 1.7%, non 5.5%.
Demographic profile: Bolivia ranks at or near the bottom among Latin American countries in several areas of health and development, including poverty, education, fertility, malnutrition, mortality, and life expectancy. On the positive side, more children are being vaccinated and more pregnant women are getting prenatal care and having skilled health practitioners attend their births.
Bolivia's income inequality is the highest in Latin America and one of the highest in the world. Public education is of poor quality, and educational opportunities are among the most unevenly distributed in Latin America, with girls and indigenous and rural children less likely to be literate or to complete primary school. The lack of access to education and family planning services helps to sustain Bolivia's high fertility rate, approximately 3 children per woman. Bolivia's lack of clean water and basic sanitation, especially in rural areas, contributes to health problems.
Between 7% and 16% of Bolivia's population lives abroad. Estimates vary in part because of illegal migration. Emigrants primarily seek jobs and better wages in Argentina, the principal destination, the US, and Spain. In recent years, more restrictive immigration policies in Europe and the US have increased the flow of Bolivian emigrants to neighboring countries. Fewer Bolivians migrated to Brazil in 2015 and 2016 because of its recession. Increasing numbers have been going to Chile, mainly to work as miners.
Age structure: 0-14 years.
31.34%. Male 1,805,765/female 1,737,647.
15-24 years.
19.37%. Male 1,109,388/female 1,080,662.
25-54 years.
37.9%. Male 2,098,847/female 2,185,890.
55-64 years.
5.96%. Male 310,250/female 363,403.
65 years and over.
5.43%. Male 270,435/female 344,054.
Population pyramid.
Population pyramid.
Dependency ratios.
Dependency ratios are a measure of the age structure of a population. They relate the number of individuals that are likely to be economically dependent on the support of others. Dependency ratios contrast the ratio of youths, ages 0 to 14, and the elderly, ages 65 plus, to the number of those in the working age group, ages 15 to 64. Changes in the dependency ratio provide an indication of potential social support requirements resulting from changes in population age structures, as fertility level. More dependency ratios. Field listing.
Total dependency ratio:
63.7.
Youth dependency ratio:
53.1.
Elderly dependency ratio:
10.6.
Potential support ratio,
9.4.
median age, total,
24.6 years.
male,
23.9 years.
female,
25.4 years.
country comparison to the world,
161.
population growth rate,
The average annual percent change in the population, resulting from a surplus, or deficit, of births over deaths and the balance of migrants entering and leaving a country. The rate may be positive or negative. The growth rate is a factor in determining how great a burden would be imposed on a country by the changing needs of its people for infrastructure, e.g., schools, hospitals, housing, roads, resources, e.g., food, water, electricity, and jobs. Rapid population growth can be seen as more population growth rate field listing.
1.48%,
Country comparison to the world.
74,
Birth rate, 21.6 births out of 1,000 population.
country comparison to the world,
71.
death rate, 6.3 deaths out of 1,000 population,
Country comparison to the world.
149,
Net migration rate, minus 0.5 migrant, s, out of 1,000 population.
country comparison to the world,
122.
population distribution. A high-altitude plain in the west between two Cordillera of the Andes, known as the Altiplano, is the focal area for most of the population. A dense settlement pattern is also found in and around the city of Santa Cruz, located on the eastern side of the Andes.
Urbanization, urban population.
69.4% of total population.
Rate of urbanization.
1.97% annual rate of change.
Major urban areas. Population, 1.814 million LA Paz. Capital, 1.641 million Santa Cruz. 1.24 million Cochabamba. 278,000 Sucre. Constitutional capital.
Sex ratio, at birth,
1.04 male, s/female.
0-14 years,
1.04 male, s/female.
15-24 years,
1.03 male, s/female.
25-54 years,
0.95 male, s/female.
55-64 years,
0.86 male, s/female.
65 years and over.
0.79 male, s/female.
Total population.
0.98 male, s/female.
Mother's mean age at first birth, 21.2 years.
Note.
Median age at first birth among women 25-29.
Maternal mortality rate.
The maternal mortality rate, MMR, is the annual number of female deaths per 100,000 live births from any cause related to or aggravated by pregnancy or its management, excluding accidental or incidental causes. The MMR includes deaths during pregnancy, childbirth, on within 42 days of termination of pregnancy, irrespective of the duration and site of the pregnancy, for a specified year. Maternal mortality rate field listing.
206 deaths/100,000 live births.
Country comparison to the world.
51.
Infant mortality rate, total,
34.2 deaths out of 1,000 live births.
male,
37.6 deaths out of 1,000 live births.
female,
30.7 deaths out of 1,000 live births.
country comparison to the world.
51.
Life expectancy at birth, total population,
69.8 years.
male,
67 years.
female,
72.8 years.
country comparison to the world.
161.
Total fertility rate, 2.58 children born, woman,
Country comparison to the world.
74.
Contraceptive prevalence rate.
This field gives the percent of women of reproductive age, 15-49, who are married or in union and are using, or whose sexual partner is using, a method of contraception according to the date of the most recent available data. The contraceptive prevalence rate is an indicator of health services, development, and women's empowerment. It is also useful in understanding past, present, and future fertility trends, especially in developing countries. Contraceptive prevalence rate field listing.
66.5%.
Health expenditures, 6.3% of GDP.
Country comparison to the world.
100.
Physicians density. 0.47 physicians out of 1,000 population.
Hospital bed density, 1.1 beds out of 1,000 population.
Drinking water source. Improved.
Urban.
96.7% of population.
Rural.
75.6% of population.
Total.
90% of population.
Unimproved.
Urban.
3.3% of population.
Rural.
24.4% of population.
Total.
10% of population.
Sanitation facility access. Improved.
Urban.
60.8% of population.
Rural.
27.5% of population.
Total.
50.3% of population.
Unimproved.
Urban.
39.2% of population.
Rural.
72.5% of population.
Total.
49.7% of population.
HIV/AIDS adult prevalence rate 0.3%.
Country comparison to the world.
78.
HIV/AIDS. People living with HIV/AIDS. 21,000.
Country comparison to the world.
81.
HIV/AIDS deaths less than 1,000. Major infectious diseases degree of risk very high.
Food or waterborne diseases.
Bacterial diarrhea and hepatitis A.
Vector-borne diseases.
Dengue fever, malaria, and yellow fever.
Note.
Active local transmission of Zika virus by Aedes species mosquitoes has been identified in this country. As of August 2016, it poses an important risk. A large number of cases possible among U.S. citizens if bitten by an infective mosquito. Other less common ways to get Zika through sex, via blood transfusion, or during pregnancy, in which the pregnant woman passes Zika virus to her fetus.
Obesity. Adult prevalence rate 20.2%.
Country comparison to the world.
102.
Children under the age of 5 years underweight 3.4%.
Country comparison to the world.
93.
Education expenditures 7.3% of GDP.
Country comparison to the world.
16.
Literacy definition.
Age 15 and over can read and write.
Total population.
92.5%.
Male.
96.5%.
Female.
88.6%.
Unemployment. Youth ages 15 to 24. Total.
6.9%.
Male.
5.8%.
Female.
8.6%.
Country comparison to the world.
146.
Government.
Bolivia.
Country name. Conventional long form.
Plurinational state of Bolivia.
Conventional short form.
Bolivia.
Local long form.
Estado plurinacional de Bolivia.
Local short form.
Bolivia.
Etymology.
The country is named after Simon Bolivar, a 19th century leader in the South American Wars for Independence.
Government type. Presidential republic.
Capital. Name.
La Paz. Administrative capital. Sucre. Constitutional. Legislative and judicial. Capital.
Geographic coordinates.
1630 S. 6809 W.
Time difference.
UC4. 1 hour ahead of Washington, D.C., during standard time.
Note.
At approximately 3,630 m above sea level, La Paz elevation makes it the highest capital city in the world.
Administrative divisions. 9 departments. Departamentos. Singular. Departamento. Beni, Chuquisaca, Cochabamba, La Paz, Oyoro, Bando, Potosi, Santa Cruz, Tarija.
Independence.
For most countries, this entry gives the date that sovereignty was achieved and from which nation, empire, or trusteeship. For the other countries, the date given may not represent independence in the strict sense, but rather some significant nationhood event such as the traditional founding date or the date of unification, federation, confederation, establishment, fundamental change in the form of government, or state succession. For a number of countries, the establishment of statehood. More Independence Field listing.
The 6th of August 1825, from Spain.
National holiday. Independence Day, 6 August, 1825.
Constitution history.
Many previous, latest drafted the 6th of August 2006 to the 9th of December 2008, approved by referendum the 25th of January 2009. Effective the 7th of February 2009. Note, in late 2017, the Constitutional Tribunal declared inapplicable provisions of the Constitution that prohibit elected officials, including the President, from serving more than 2 consecutive terms.
Amendments.
Proposed through public petition by at least 20% of voters or by the Plurinational Legislative Assembly. Passage requires approval by at least 2/3 majority vote of the total membership of the Assembly and approval in a referendum. Amended 2013.
Legal system. Civil law system with influences from Roman, Spanish, canon, religious, French, and indigenous law.
International Law Organization participation has not submitted an ICJ jurisdiction declaration, except SIC jurisdiction.
Citizenship. Citizenship by birth.
Yes.
Citizenship by descent only.
Yes.
Dual citizenship recognized.
Yes.
Residency requirement for naturalization.
3 years.
Suffrage. 18 years of age. Universal and compulsory.
Executive branch. Chief of State.
President Juan Evo Morales Aymer, since the 22nd of January 2006. Vice President Alvaro Garcia Linera, since the 22nd of January 2006. Note: the President is both Chief of State and Head of Government.
Head of Government.
President Juan Evo Morales Aymer, since the 22nd of January 2006. Vice President Alvaro Garcia Linera, since the 22nd of January 2006.
Cabinet.
Cabinet appointed by the President.
Elections. Appointments.
President and Vice President directly elected on the same ballot one of 3 ways.
Candidate wins at least 50% of the vote, or at least 40% of the vote and 10% more than the next highest candidate. Otherwise a second round is held and the winner determined by simple majority vote. No term limits. Changed from 2 consecutive term limit by Constitutional Court in late 2017. Election last held on the 12th of October 2014, next to be held in 2019.
Election results.
Juan Evo Morales Aymer re-elected president, percent of vote. Juan Evo Morales Aymer, MAS 61%, Samuel Dorian Medina Arana, UN 24.5%, Jorge Quiroga Ramirez, POC 9.1%, other 5.4%.
Legislative branch. Description.
Bicameral plurinational legislative assembly or assembly legislativa plurinational consists of
Chamber of Senators or Cámara de Senadores, 36 seats, members directly elected in multi-seat constituencies by proportional representation vote. Members serve 5-year terms.
Chamber of Deputies or Cámara de Diputados, 130 seats, 70 members directly elected in single-seat constituencies by simple majority vote. 53 directly elected in single-seat constituencies by proportional representation vote, and 7, apportioned to non-contiguous, rural areas in 7 of the 9 states, directly elected in single-seat constituencies by simple majority vote. Members serve 5-year terms.
Elections. Chamber of Senators, last held on the 12th of October 2014, next to be held in 2019.
Chamber of Deputies, last held on the 12th of October 2014, next to be held in 2019.
Election results. Chamber of Senators, percent of vote by party, NA, seats by party, MAS 25, UG 9, 2. Composition, men 19, women 17, percent of women 47.2%.
Chamber of Deputies, percent of vote by party, NA, seats by party, MAS 88, UD 32, PDC 10, composition. Men 61, women 69, percent of women 53.1%, note, total plurinational legislative assembly percent of women 51.8%.
Judicial branch, highest courts.
Supreme Court or Tribunal Supremo de Justicia, consists of 12 judges or ministros organized into civil, penal, social, and administrative chambers. Plurinational Constitutional Tribunal, consists of 7 primary and 7 alternate magistrates. Plurinational Electoral Organ, consists of 7 members and 6 alternates. National Agro-Environment Court, consists of 5 primary and 5 alternate judges. Council of the Judiciary, consists of 3 primary and 3 alternate judges.
Judge selection in term of office.
Supreme Court, Plurinational Constitutional Tribunal, National Agro-Environmental Court, and Council of the Judiciary candidates pre-selected by the Plurinational Legislative Assembly and elected by direct popular vote. Judges elected for 6-year terms. Plurinational Electoral Organ judges appointed, 6 by the Legislative Assembly and 1 by the President of the Republic. Members serve single 6-year terms.
Subordinate courts.
National Electoral Court, District Courts, in each of the 9 administrative departments. Agro-environmental lower courts.
Political parties and leaders. Christie in Democratic Party or PDC, Jorge Fernando Quiroga Ramirez.
Movement toward socialism or MAS, Juan Evo Morales Zema.
National Unity or UN. Samuel de Oria Medina Arana.
International Organization Participation, CAN, CD, SULUC, FAO, G77, IADP, IAEA, IBRD, ICAO, ICC, National Committees, ICT, ICRM, IDA, IFAT, IFC, IFCS, ILO, IMF, IMO, Interpol, IOC, IAM, IPU, ISO, Correspondent, ITSO, ITU, LS, LIA, Mercosur, Associate, MEGA, MINUSTA, MONUSCO, NAM, OAS, OpenL, OPCW, PCA, UN, UN Security Council, Temporary, UNAMID, UNASUR, UNCTAD, UNESCO, UNIDO, Union Latina, UNMIL, UNMIS, UNASI, UNTO, UPU, WCO, WFTU, NGOs, WHO, WIPO, WMO, WTO.
Diplomatic representation in the U.S. Chief of Mission.
Ambassador, vacant, charge d'affaires Rafael Pablo Canedo de Roca, since July 2017.
Chancery.
3014 Massachusetts Avenue Northwest, Washington, D.C. 20008.
Telephone.
12023284155.
Fax.
12023283712.
Consulate. S. General.
Houston, Los Angeles, Miami, New York, Washington, D.C.
Note.
In September 2008, the U.S. expelled the Bolivian ambassador to the U.S. in reciprocity for Bolivia expelling the U.S. ambassador to Bolivia.
Diplomatic representation from the U.S. Chief of Mission.
Ambassador, vacant, charge d'affaires Bruce Williamson, since December 2017.
Embassy.
Of Aniduas 2780, Casilla 425, La Paz.
Mailing address.
3220 Lane Paz Place, Dulles, Virginia, 2018-93220.
Telephone.
591 2216800.
Fax.
591 2216811.
Note.
In September 2008, the Bolivian government expelled the U.S. ambassador to Bolivia, Philip Goldberg, and both countries have yet to reinstate their ambassadors.
Flag description: 3 equal horizontal bands of red, top, yellow, and green with the coat of arms centered on the yellow band. Red stands for bravery and the blood of national heroes, yellow for the nation's mineral resources, and green for the fertility of the land.
Note.
Similar to the flag of Ghana, which has a large black 5-pointed star centered in the yellow band. In 2009, a presidential decree made it mandatory for a so-called Bifala, a square, multicolored flag representing the country's indigenous peoples, to be used alongside the traditional flag.
National symbols: llama, Andean condor. National colors:
red, yellow, green.
National anthem. Name:
Canción Patriótica, patriotic song.
Lyrics, music:
Jose Ignacio de Sanguines / Leopoldo Benedetto Vincenti.
Note.
Adopted 1852.
Economy.
Bolivia.
Economy. Overview. Bolivia is a resource-rich country with strong growth attributed to captive markets for natural gas exports to Brazil and Argentina. However, the country remains one of the least developed countries in Latin America because of state-oriented policies that deter investment.
Following an economic crisis during the early 1980s, reforms in the 1990s spurred private investment, stimulated economic growth, and cut poverty rates. The period 2003-05 was characterized by political instability, racial tensions, and violent protests against plans subsequently abandoned to export Bolivia's newly discovered natural gas reserves to large Northern Hemisphere markets. In 2005-06, the government passed hydrocarbon laws that imposed significantly high royalties and required foreign firms then operating under risk-sharing contracts to surrender all production to the state energy company in exchange for a predetermined service fee. The laws engendered much public debate. High commodity prices between 2010 and 2014 sustained rapid growth and large trade surpluses, with GDP growing 6.8% in 2013 and 5.4% in 2014. The global decline in oil prices that began in late 2014 exerted downward pressure on the price Bolivia receives for exported gas and resulted in lower GDP growth rates, -4.9% in 2015 and 4.3% in 2016, and losses in government revenue as well as fiscal and trade deficits.
A lack of foreign investment in the key sectors of mining and hydrocarbons, along with conflict among social groups, pose challenges for the Bolivian economy. In 2015, President Evo Morales expanded efforts to court international investment and boost Bolivia's energy production capacity. Morales passed an investment law and promised not to nationalize additional industries in an effort to improve the investment climate. In early 2016, the government of Bolivia approved the 2016 to 2020 National Economic and Social Development Plan aimed at maintaining growth of 5% and reducing poverty.
GDP, purchasing power parity, $83.72 billion.
$80.35 billion.
$77.07 billion.
Note.
Data in 2017 dollars.
Country comparison to the world.
94.
GDP. Official exchange rate. $37.78 billion.
GDP. Real growth rate. 4.2%.
4.3%.
4.9%.
Country comparison to the world.
70.
GDP. Per capita. PPP. $7,600.
$7,400.
$7,200.
Note.
Data are in 2017 dollars.
Country comparison to the world.
154.
Gross national saving.
Gross national saving is derived by deducting final consumption expenditure, household plus government, from gross national disposable income, and consists of personal saving, plus business saving, the sum of the capital consumption allowance and retained business profits, plus government saving, the excess of tax revenues over expenditures, but excludes foreign saving, the excess of imports of goods and services over exports. The figures are presented as a percent of GDP. A negative. More gross national saving field listing.
15.7% of GDP.
15.3% of GDP.
14.2% of GDP.
Country comparison to the world.
132.
GDP, composition, by end use. Household consumption.
67.7%.
Government consumption.
17%.
Investment in fixed capital.
21.3%.
Investment in inventories.
3.8%.
Exports of goods and services.
21.7%.
Imports of goods and services.
Minus 31.3%.
GDP, composition, by sector of origin. Agriculture.
13.8%.
Industry.
37.8%.
Services.
48.2%.
Agriculture, products. Soybeans, quinoa, Brazil nuts, sugarcane, coffee, corn, rice, potatoes, kia, coca.
Industries. Mining, smelting, electricity, petroleum, food and beverages, handicrafts, clothing, jewelry.
Industrial production growth rate 2.2%.
Country comparison to the world.
123.
Labor force 5.719 million.
Country comparison to the world.
73.
Labor force by occupation. Agriculture
29.4%.
Industry
22%.
Services
48.6%.
Unemployment rate 4%.
4%.
Note.
Data are for urban areas. Widespread underemployment.
Country comparison to the world.
49.
Population below poverty line.
National estimates of the percentage of the population falling below the poverty line are based on surveys of subgroups, with the results weighted by the number of people in each group. Definitions of poverty vary considerably among nations. For example, rich nations generally employ more generous standards of poverty than poor nations. Population below poverty line field listing.
38.6%.
Note.
Based on percent of population living on less than the international standard of $2 per day.
Household income or consumption by percentage share.
Data on household income or consumption come from household surveys, the results adjusted for household size. Nations use different standards and procedures in collecting and adjusting the data. Surveys based on income will normally show a more unequal distribution than surveys based on consumption. The quality of surveys is improving with time, yet caution is still necessary in making inter-country comparisons. Household income or consumption by percentage share field listing.
Lowest 10%.
0.9%.
Highest 10%.
36.1%.
Distribution of family income, Gini index.
This index measures the degree of inequality in the distribution of family income in a country. The index is calculated from the Lorentz curve, in which cumulative family income is plotted against the number of families arranged from the poorest to the richest. The index is the ratio of A, the area between a country's Lorentz curve and the 45-degree helping line, to B, the entire triangular area under the 45-degree line. The more nearly equal a country's income distribution, the closer its more distribution of family income. Gini index field listing.
47.
57.9, 1999.
Country comparison to the world.
28.
Budget, revenues.
15.09 billion.
Expenditures.
18.02 billion.
Taxes and other revenues. 39.9% of GDP.
Country comparison to the world.
39.
Budget surplus, plus, or deficit, minus 7.8% of GDP.
Country comparison to the world.
196.
Public debt. 49% of GDP.
44.9% of GDP.
Note:
Data cover general government debt and includes debt instruments issued by government entities other than the Treasury. The data include Treasury debt held by foreign entities. The data include debt issued by subnational entities.
Country comparison to the world.
104.
Fiscal year. Calendar year.
Inflation rate. Consumer prices. 2.8%.
3.6%.
Country comparison to the world.
127.
Central bank discount rate. 2.5%.
2.5%.
Country comparison to the world.
114.
Commercial bank prime lending rate. 8.11%.
7.95%.
Country comparison to the world.
106.
Stock of Naira money. $9.616 billion.
$9.09 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
82.
Stock of broad money. $9.616 billion.
$9.09 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
84.
Stock of domestic credit. $25.61 billion.
$22.39 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
85.
Market value of publicly traded shares. $12.8 billion.
$12.3 billion.
$11.11 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
70.
Current account balance, minus $2.375 billion.
Minus $1.932 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
171.
Exports, $7.746 billion.
$7.214 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
99.
Exports, partners, Brazil 17.9%, Argentina 16%, US 7.8%, Japan 7.3%, India 6.6%, South Korea 6.3%, Colombia 5.8%, China 5.1%, UAE 4.7%.
Exports, commodities, natural gas, silver, zinc, lead, tin, gold, quinoa, soybeans and soy products.
Imports, $8.601 billion.
$7.888 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
108.
Imports, commodities, machinery, petroleum products, vehicles, iron and steel, plastics.
Imports, partners, China 21.7%, Brazil 16.8%, Argentina 12.6%, US 8.4%, Peru 6.5%.
Reserves of foreign exchange in gold, $10.26 billion.
$10.08 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
74.
Debt, external, $12.81 billion.
$7.268 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
106.
Stock of direct foreign investment, at home, $12.31 billion.
$11.6 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
93.
Stock of direct foreign investment, abroad, $0.
$0.
Country comparison to the world.
120.
Exchange rates, Bolivianos, Bob, per US dollar.
6.86.
6.86.
6.91.
6.91.
6.91.
Energy.
Bolivia.
Electricity access. Population without electricity.
1.2 million.
Electrification. Total population.
90%.
Electrification. Urban areas.
99%.
Electrification. Rural areas.
72%.
Electricity production. 8.951 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
107.
Electricity consumption 7.785 billion kWh.
Country comparison to the world.
105.
Electricity exports 0 kilowatt hours.
Country comparison to the world.
108.
Electricity imports 0 kilowatt hours.
Country comparison to the world.
127.
Electricity installed generating capacity 2.764 million.
Country comparison to the world.
101.
Electricity from fossil fuels 76% of total installed capacity.
Country comparison to the world.
93.
Electricity from nuclear fuels 0% of total installed capacity.
Country comparison to the world.
52.
Electricity from hydroelectric plants 18% of total installed capacity.
Country comparison to the world.
92.
Electricity from other renewable sources 7% of total installed capacity.
Country comparison to the world.
92.
Crude oil production 59,330 barrel day.
Country comparison to the world.
49.
Crude oil exports 1,274 barrels/day.
Country comparison to the world.
72.
Crude oil imports 0 barrel day.
Country comparison to the world.
99.
Crude oil proved reserves 211.5 million barrels.
Country comparison to the world.
54.
Refined petroleum products production 65,960 barrel day.
Country comparison to the world.
75.
Refined petroleum products consumption 83,000 barrels/day.
Country comparison to the world.
86.
Refined petroleum products exports 9,686 barrel day.
Country comparison to the world.
82.
Refined petroleum products imports 20,620 barrels/day.
Country comparison to the world.
118.
Natural gas production 18.69 billion cubic meters.
Country comparison to the world.
32.
Natural gas consumption 3.171 billion qm.
Country comparison to the world.
71.
Natural gas exports 15.46 billion cubic meters.
Country comparison to the world.
15.
Natural gas imports 0 qm.
Country comparison to the world.
94.
Natural gas proved reserves 295.9 billion cubic meters.
Country comparison to the world.
37.
Carbon dioxide emissions from consumption of energy 17.66 million.
Country comparison to the world.
90.
Communications.
Bolivia.
Telephones, fixed lines. Total subscriptions.
851,110.
Subscriptions per 100 inhabitants.
8.
Country comparison to the world.
78.
Telephones, mobile cellular. Total subscriptions.
10,106,216.
Subscriptions per 100 inhabitants.
91.
Country comparison to the world.
84.
Telephone system. General assessment.
State-owned Empresa Nacional de Telecomunicaciones, Entel, is the country's incumbent long-distance operator, and offers local telephone service, DSL, and satellite TV. Its subsidiary Entel Móvil is Bolivia's largest mobile network provider. Reliability and coverage have steadily improved, but some remote areas are still underserved. Entel plans to extend fiber to all 339 municipal capital cities by 2022. MNP, Mobile Number Portability, launched in October 2018. Bolivian Space Agency planning to launch a second telecom satellite after 2020.
Domestic.
Most telephones are concentrated in La Paz, Santa Cruz, and other capital cities. 8 per 100 fixed line. Mobile cellular telephone use expanding rapidly in teledensity stood at 91 per 100 persons.
International.
Country code -591. Satellite Earth Station -1 Intelsat. Atlantic Ocean. Bolivia has no direct access to submarine cable networks and must therefore connect to the rest of the world either via satellite or through terrestrial links across neighboring countries.
Broadcast media. Large number of radio and TV stations broadcasting with private media outlets dominating. state-owned and private radio and TV stations generally operating freely, although both pro-government and anti-government groups have attacked media outlets in response to their reporting.
Internet country code. .bo.
Internet users, total
4,354,678.
% of population.
39.7%.
Country comparison to the world.
83.
Broadband, fixed subscriptions, total
358,680.
subscriptions per 100 inhabitants.
3.
Country comparison to the world.
90.
Transportation.
Bolivia.
National Air Transport System. Number of registered air carriers.
7.
Inventory of registered aircraft operated by air carriers.
39.
Annual passenger traffic on registered air carriers.
2,578,959.
Annual freight traffic on registered air carriers.
9,456,548.
Civil aircraft registration country code prefix, CP.
Airports. 855.
Country comparison to the world.
7.
Airports, with paved runways, total
21.
over 3,047 meters.
5.
2,438 to 3,047 meters.
4.
1,524 to 2,437 meters.
6.
914 to 1,523 meters.
6.
Airports, with unpaved runways, total
834.
over 3,047 meters.
1.
2,438 to 3,047 meters.
4.
1,524 to 2,437 meters.
47.
914 to 1,523 meters.
151.
Under 914 meters.
631.
Pipelines, 5,457 kilometers gas, 51 kilometers liquid petroleum gas, 2,511 kilometers oil, 1,627 kilometers refined products.
Railways, total
3,504 kilometers.
narrow gauge
3,504 kilometers 1.000 meter gauge.
country comparison to the world.
55.
Roadways, total
90,568 kilometers.
paved,
9,792 kilometers.
unpaved.
80,776 kilometers.
Country comparison to the world.
41.
Waterways, 10,000 kilometers, commercially navigable almost exclusively in the northern and eastern parts of the country.
Country comparison to the world.
13.
Merchant marine.
Merchant marine may be defined as all ships engaged in the carriage of goods, or all commercial vessels, as opposed to all non-military ships, which excludes tugs, fishing vessels, offshore oil rigs, etc.
Total.
55.
By type.
General cargo 41, oil tanker 3, other 11.
Country comparison to the world.
111.
Ports and terminals. River ports.
Puerto Aguirre, Paraguay/Parana.
Note.
Bolivia has free port privileges in maritime ports in Argentina, Brazil, Chile, and Paraguay.
Military and security.
Bolivia.
Military expenditures. 1.76% of GDP.
1.68% of GDP.
1.74% of GDP.
1.9% of GDP.
1.84% of GDP.
Country comparison to the world.
62.
Military branches. Bolivian Armed Forces.
Bolivian Army, Ejército Boliviano, EP, Bolivian Naval Force, Fuerza Naval Boliviana, FNB, includes Marines, Bolivian Air Force, Fuerza Aérea Boliviana, FAB.
Military service age and obligation. 16 to 49 years of age for 12-month voluntary male and female military service. Bolivian citizenship required. Minimum age of combat is 18. When annual number of volunteers falls short of goal, compulsory recruitment is effected, including conscription of boys as young as 14, 15 to 19 years of age for voluntary pro-military service, provides exemption from further military service.
Transnational issues.
Bolivia.
Disputes. International. Chile and Peru rebuff Bolivia's reactivated claim to restore the Atacama Corridor, ceded to Chile in 1884. But Chile offers instead unrestricted but not sovereign maritime access through Chile for Bolivian products. Contraband smuggling, human trafficking, and illegal narcotic trafficking are problems in the porous areas of its border regions with all of its neighbors, Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Paraguay, and Peru.
Trafficking in persons.
Trafficking in persons is modern-day slavery, involving victims who are forced, defrauded, or coerced into labor or sexual exploitation. The International Labour Organization, ILO, the UN agency charged with addressing labor standards, employment, and social protection issues, estimated in 2011 that 20.9 million people worldwide were victims of forced labor, bonded labor, forced child labor, sexual servitude, and involuntary servitude. Human trafficking is a multi-dimensional threat. Dippery. More trafficking in persons field listing.
Current situation.
Bolivia is a source country for men, women, and children subjected to forced labor and sex trafficking domestically and abroad. Rural and poor Bolivians, most of whom are indigenous, and LGBT youth are particularly vulnerable. Bolivians perform forced labor domestically in mining, ranching, agriculture, and domestic service, and a significant number are in forced labor abroad in sweatshops, agriculture, domestic service, and the informal sector. Women and girls are sex trafficked within Bolivia and in neighboring countries, such as Argentina, Peru, and Chile. A limited number of women from nearby countries are sex trafficked in Bolivia.
Tier rating.
Tier 2 watch list. Bolivia does not comply fully with the minimum standards for the elimination of human trafficking, however, it is making significant efforts to do so. The government did not demonstrate overall increasing anti-trafficking efforts, and poor data collection made it difficult to assess the number of investigations, prosecutions, and victim identifications and referrals to care services. Authorities did not adequately differentiate between human trafficking and other crimes, such as domestic violence and child abuse. Law enforcement failed to implement an early detection protocol for identifying trafficking cases and lacked a formal process for identifying trafficking victims among vulnerable populations. Specialized victim services were inadequately funded and virtually non-existent for adult women and male victims.
Illicit drugs. World's third largest cultivator of coca.
Bolivia/B. L. Vi / About this sound listen. Spanish, Guarani, Bolivia, Quechua, Pulewia, Aymara, Nulewia, officially the plurinational state of Bolivia. Spanish, Estado Plurinacional de Bolivia, is a landlocked country located in West and Central South America. The capital is Sucre while the seat of government and financial center is located in La Paz. The largest city and principal industrial center is Santa Cruz de la Sierra, located on the Llanos Orientales, tropical lowlands, a mostly flat region in the east of Bolivia. The sovereign state of Bolivia is a constitutionally unitary state, divided into 9 departments. Its geography varies from the peaks of the Andes in the west, to the eastern lowlands, situated within the Amazon basin. It is bordered to the north and east by Brazil, to the southeast by Paraguay, to the south by Argentina, to the southwest by Chile, and to the northwest by Peru. 1/3 of the country is within the Andean mountain range, with 1,098,581 square kilometers, 424,164 square miles, of area. Bolivia is the 5th largest country in South America and the 27th largest in the world. The country's population, estimated at 11 million, is multi-ethnic, including Amerindians, Mestizos, Europeans, Asians and Africans. The racial and social segregation that arose from Spanish colonialism has continued to the modern era. Spanish is the official and predominant language, although 36 indigenous languages also have official status, of which the most commonly spoken are Guarani, Aymara and Quechua languages. Before Spanish colonization, the Andean region of Bolivia was part of the Inca Empire, while the northern and eastern lowlands were inhabited by independent tribes. Spanish conquistadors arriving from Cuzco and Asunción took control of the region in the 16th century. During the Spanish colonial period, Bolivia was administered by the Royal Audiencia of Charcas. Spain built its empire in large part upon the silver that was extracted from Bolivia's mines. After the first call for independence in 1809, 16 years of war followed before the establishment of the Republic. named for Simon Bolivar. Over the course of the 19th and early 20th century, Bolivia lost control of several peripheral territories to neighboring countries, including the seizure of its coastline by Chile in 1879. Bolivia remained relatively politically stable until 1971, when Hugo Banzer led a coup d'état which replaced the socialist government of Juan José Torres with a military dictatorship headed by Banzer. Torres was murdered in Buenos Aires, Argentina by a right-wing death squad in 1976. Banzer's regime cracked down on leftist and socialist opposition and other forms of dissent, resulting in the torture and deaths of a number of Bolivian citizens. Banzer was ousted in 1978 and later returned as the democratically elected president of Bolivia from 1997 to 2001. Modern Bolivia is a charter member of the UN, IMF, NAM, OAS, ACTO, Bank of the South, ALBA and USAN. For over a decade, Bolivia has had one of the fastest economic growths in Latin America. However, it remains the second poorest country in South America. It is a developing country, with a medium ranking in the Human Development Index, a poverty level of 38.6%, and it has one of the lowest crime rates in Latin America. Its main economic activities include agriculture, forestry, fishing, mining, and manufacturing goods such as textiles, clothing, refined metals, and refined petroleum. Bolivia is very rich in minerals, including tin, silver, and lithium. Etymology: Bolivia is named after Simon Bolivar, a leader in the Spanish-American Wars of Independence. The leader of Venezuela, Antonio José de Sucre, had been given the option by Bolivar to either unite Charcas, present-day Bolivia, with the newly formed Republic of Peru, to unite with the United Provinces of Rio de la Plata, or to formally declare its independence from Spain as a wholly independent state. Sucre opted to create a brand new state and on the 6th of August 1825, with local support, named it in honor of Simon Bolivar. The original name was Republic of Bolivar. Some days later, Congressman Manuel Martin Cruz proposed, "If from Romulus comes Rome, then from Bolivar comes Bolivia," Spanish, "Si de Romulo Roma, de Bolivar Bolivia." The name was approved by the Republic on the 3rd of October 1825. In 2009, a new constitution changed the country's official name to Plurinational State of Bolivia in recognition of the multi-ethnic nature of the country and the enhanced position of Bolivia's indigenous peoples under the new constitution. History: Pre-colonial, Puerto del Sol, archaeological zone of Tiwanaku, Bolivia. Tiwanaku at its largest territorial extent, AD 950. The region now known as Bolivia had been occupied for over 2,500 years when the Aymara arrived. However, present-day Aymara associates themselves with the ancient civilization of the Tiwanaku culture, which had its capital at Tiwanaku, in western Bolivia. The capital city of Tiwanaku dates from as early as 1500 BC, when it was a small, agriculturally based village. The community grew to urban proportions between AD 600 and AD 800, becoming an important regional power in the southern Andes. According to early estimates, the city covered approximately 6.5 square kilometers, 2.5 square miles, at its maximum extent, and had between 15,000 and 30,000 inhabitants. In 1996, satellite imaging was used to map the extent of fossilized sucre colas, flooded raised fields, across the three primary valleys of Tiwanaku, arriving at population carrying capacity estimates of anywhere between 285,000 and 1,482,000 people. Around AD 400, Tiwanaku went from being a locally dominant force to a predatory state. Tiwanaku expanded its reaches into the Yungas and brought its culture and way of life to many other cultures in Peru, Bolivia, and Chile. Tiwanaku was not a violent culture in many respects. In order to expand its reach, Tiwanaku exercised great political astuteness, creating colonies, fostering trade agreements, which made the other cultures rather dependent, and instituting state cults. The empire continued to grow with no end in sight. William H. Isbell states Tiwanaku underwent a dramatic transformation between AD 600 and 700 that established new monumental standards for civic architecture and greatly increased the resident population. Tiwanaku continued to absorb cultures rather than eradicate them. Archaeologists note a dramatic adoption of Tiwanaku ceramics into the cultures which became part of the Tiwanaku Empire. Tiwanaku's power was further solidified through the trade it implemented among the cities within its empire. Tiwanaku's elites gained their status through the surplus food they controlled, collected from outlying regions and then redistributed to the general populace. Further, this elite's control of llama herds became a powerful control mechanism as llamas were essential for carrying goods between the civic center and the periphery. These herds also came to symbolize class distinctions between the commoners and the elites. Through this control and manipulation of surplus resources, the elite's power continued to grow until about AD 950. At this time a dramatic shift in climate occurred, causing a significant drop in precipitation in the Titicaca Basin, believed by archaeologists to have been on the scale of a major drought. As the rainfall decreased, many of the cities farther away from Lake Titicaca began to tender fewer foodstuffs to the elites. As the surplus of food decreased, and thus the amount available to underpin their power, the control of the elites began to falter. The capital city became the last place viable for food production due to the resiliency of the raised field method of agriculture. Tiwanaku disappeared around AD 1000 because food production, the main source of the elite's power, dried up. The area remained uninhabited for centuries thereafter. Inca expansion, 1438 to 1533. Between 1438 and 1527, the Inca Empire, during its expansion from its capital at Cuzco, Peru, it gained control over much of what is now Andean Bolivia and extended its control into the fringes of the Amazon basin. Colonial period. The Spanish conquest of the Inca Empire began in 1524, and was mostly completed by 1533. The territory now called Bolivia was known as Charcas, and was under the authority of the Viceroy of Lima. Local government came from the Audiencia de Charcas located in Chuquisaca, La Plata, modern Sucre. Founded in 1545 as a mining town, Potosi soon produced fabulous wealth, becoming the largest city in the New World with a population exceeding 150,000 people. By the late 16th century, Bolivian silver was an important source of revenue for the Spanish Empire. A steady stream of natives served as labor force under the brutal, slave conditions of the Spanish version of the pre-Columbian draft system called the Mita. Charcas was transferred to the Viceroyalty of the Rio de la Plata in 1776 and the people from Buenos Aires, the capital of the Viceroyalty, coined the term Upper Peru, Spanish, Alto Peru, as a popular reference to the royal audiencia of Charcas. Tupac Katari led the indigenous rebellion that laid siege to La Paz in March 1781, during which 20,000 people died. As Spanish royal authority weakened during the Napoleonic Wars, sentiment against colonial rule grew. Independence and subsequent wars. The struggle for independence started in the city of Sucre on the 25th of May 1809 and the Chuquisaca Revolution. Chuquisaca was then the name of the city, is known as the first cry of freedom in Latin America. That revolution was followed by the La Paz Revolution on the 16th of July 1809. The La Paz Revolution marked a complete split with the Spanish government, while the Chuquisaca Revolution established a local independent junta in the name of the Spanish king deposed by Napoleon Bonaparte. Both revolutions were short-lived and defeated by the Spanish authorities in the Viceroyalty of the Rio de la Plata. But the following year the Spanish-American Wars of Independence raged across the continent. Bolivia was captured and recaptured many times during the war by the Royalists and Patriots. Buenos Aires sent 3 military campaigns, all of which were defeated, and eventually limited itself to protecting the national borders at Salta. Bolivia was finally freed of Royalist dominion by Antonio José de Sucre, with a military campaign coming from the north in support of the campaign of Simon Bolivar. After 16 years of war, the Republic was proclaimed on the 6th of August 1825. The first coat of arms of Bolivia, formally named the Republic of Bolivar in honor of Simon Bolivar. In 1836, Bolivia, under the rule of Marshal Andrés de Santa Cruz, invaded Peru to reinstall the deposed president, General Luis José de Orbegoso. Peru and Bolivia formed the Peru-Bolivian Confederation, with de Santa Cruz as the supreme protector. Following tension between the Confederation and Chile, Chile declared war on 28 December 1836. Argentina separately declared war on the Confederation on 9 May 1837. The Peruvian-Bolivian forces achieved several major victories during the War of the Confederation, the defeat of the Argentine expedition and the defeat of the first Chilean expedition on the fields of Pocahpata near the city of Arequipa. At the outset of the war, the Chilean and Peruvian rebel army surrendered unconditionally and signed the Pocahpata Treaty. The treaty stipulated that Chile would withdraw from Peru-Bolivia, Chile would return captured Confederate ships, economic relations would be normalized, and the Confederation would pay Peruvian debt to Chile. In Chile, the government and public rejected the peace treaty. Chile organized a second attack on the Confederation and defeated it in the Battle of Yungay. After this defeat, Santa Cruz resigned and went to exile in Ecuador and then Paris, and the Peruvian-Bolivian Confederation was dissolved. Following the renewed independence of Peru, Peruvian President General Agustín Gamero invaded Bolivia. The Peruvian army was decisively defeated at the Battle of Ingavi on 20 November 1841, where Gamero was killed. The Bolivian army under General José Bolivian then mounted a counter-offensive, capturing the Peruvian port of Arica. Later, both sides signed a peace treaty in 1842, putting a final end to the war. A period of political and economic instability in the early to mid-19th century weakened Bolivia. In addition, during the War of the Pacific, 1879–83, Chile occupied vast territories rich in natural resources southwest of Bolivia, including the Bolivian coast. Chile took control of today's Chuquicamata area, the adjoining rich Salita, saltpeter fields, and the port of Antofagasta, among other Bolivian territories. Thus, since independence, Bolivia has lost over half of its territory to neighboring countries. It also lost the state of Acre, in the Acre War, important because this region was known for its production of rubber. Peasants and the Bolivian army fought briefly but after a few victories, and facing the prospect of a total war against Brazil, it was forced to sign the Treaty of Petropolis in 1903. In which Bolivia lost this rich territory. Popular myth has it that Bolivian President Mariano Melgarejo, 1864–71, traded the land for what he called a magnificent white horse, and Acre was subsequently flooded by Brazilians, which ultimately led to confrontation and fear of war with Brazil. In the late 19th century, an increase in the world price of silver brought Bolivia relative prosperity and political stability. Early 20th century, Bolivia's territorial losses, 1867–1938. During the early 20th century, tin replaced silver as the country's most important source of wealth. A succession of governments controlled by the economic and social elite followed laissez-faire capitalist policies through the first 30 years of the 20th century. Living conditions of the native people, who constitute most of the population, remained deplorable, with work opportunities limited to primitive conditions in the mines and in large estates having nearly feudal status. They had no access to education, economic opportunity, and political participation. Bolivia's defeat by Paraguay in the Chaco War, 1932–35, where Bolivia lost a great part of the Gran Chaco region in dispute, marked a turning point. The Revolutionary Nationalist Movement, MNR, the most historic political party, emerged as a broad-based party. Denied its victory in the 1951 presidential elections, the MNR led a successful revolution in 1952. Under President Victor Paz Istancera, the MNR, having strong popular pressure, introduced universal suffrage into his political platform and carried out a sweeping land reform promoting rural education and nationalization of the country's largest tin mines. Late 20th century. 12 years of tumultuous rule left the MNR divided. In 1964, a military junta overthrew President Istancera at the outset of his third term. The 1969 death of President René Barrientos Ortuño, a former member of the junta who was elected president in 1966, led to a succession of weak governments. Alarmed by the rising Popular Assembly and the increase in the popularity of President Juan José Torres, the military, the MNR, and others installed Colonel, later General, Hugo Banzer Serres as president in 1971. He returned to the presidency in 1997 through 2001. The United States Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, had been active in providing finances and training to the Bolivian military dictatorship in the 1960s. The revolutionary leader Che Guevara was killed by a team of CIA officers and members of the Bolivian army on the 9th of October 1967, in Bolivia. Felix Rodriguez was a CIA officer on the team with the Bolivian army that captured and shot Guevara. Rodriguez said that after he received a Bolivian presidential execution order, he told the soldier who pulled the trigger to aim carefully, to remain consistent with the Bolivian government's story that Che had been killed in action during a clash with the Bolivian army. Rodriguez said the US government had wanted Che in Panama, and I could have tried to falsify the command to the troops, and got Che to Panama as the US government said they had wanted, but that he had chosen to let history run its course as desired by Bolivia. Elections in 1979 and 1981 were inconclusive and marked by fraud. There were coups d'état, counter-coups, and caretaker governments. In 1980, General Luis Garcia Meza Tejeda carried out a ruthless and violent coup d'état that did not have popular support. He pacified the people by promising to remain in power only for 1 year. At the end of the year, he staged a televised rally to claim popular support and announced, "Bueno, me quedo," or, "All right, I'll stay." After a military rebellion forced out Meza in 1981, 3 other military governments in 14 months struggled with Bolivia's growing problems. Unrest forced the military to convoke the Congress, elected in 1980, and allow it to choose a new chief executive. In October 1982, Hernan Siles Zuazo again became president, 22 years after the end of his first term of office, 1956-60. Democratic transition. Former President, Gonzalo Sanchez de Lozada. Gonzalo Sanchez de Lozada pursued an aggressive economic and social reform agenda. The most dramatic reform was privatization under the capitalization program, under which investors, typically foreign, acquired 50% ownership and management control of public enterprises in return for agreed-upon capital investments. In 1993, Gonzalo Sanchez de Lozada ran for president in alliance with the Tupac Katari Revolutionary Liberation Movement, which inspired indigenous sensitive and multicultural-aware policies. In 1993, Sanchez de Lozada introduced the Plan de Todos, which led to the decentralization of government, introduction of intercultural bilingual education, implementation of agrarian legislation, and privatization of state-owned businesses. The plan explicitly stated that Bolivian citizens would own a minimum of 51% of enterprises. Under the plan, most state-owned enterprises, SOEs, though not mines, were sold. This privatization of SOEs led to a neoliberal structuring. The law of popular participation dumped upon municipalities the responsibility of maintaining various infrastructures, and offering services, health, education, systems of irrigation, without support from the state. The reforms and economic restructuring were strongly opposed by certain segments of society, which instigated frequent and sometimes violent protests, particularly in La Paz and the Chapacoca growing region. From 1994 through 1996, the indigenous population of the Andean region was not able to benefit from government reforms. During this time, the umbrella labor organization of Bolivia, the Central Obra Boliviana, COB, became increasingly unable to effectively challenge government policy. A teachers' strike in 1995 was defeated because the COB could not marshal the support of many of its members, including construction and factory workers. 1997 to 2002 General Banzer presidency. In the 1997 elections, General Hugo Banzer, leader of the Nationalist Democratic Action Party, ADN, and former dictator, 1971 to 78, won 22% of the vote, while the MNR candidate won 18%. At the outset of his government, President Banzer launched a policy of using special police units to eradicate physically the illegal cocoa of the Chiapa region. The mayor of Jaime Paz Zamora remained a coalition partner throughout the Banzer government, supporting this policy, called the Dignity Plan. The Banzer government basically continued the free market and privatization policies of its predecessor. The relatively robust economic growth of the mid-1990s continued until about the third year of its term in office. After that, regional, global and domestic factors contributed to a decline in economic growth. Financial crises in Argentina and Brazil, lower world prices for export commodities, and reduced employment in the coca sector depressed the Bolivian economy. The public also perceived a significant amount of public sector corruption. These factors contributed to increasing social protests during the second half of Banzer's term. Between January 1999 and April 2000, large-scale protests erupted in Cochabamba, Bolivia's third-largest city, in response to the privatization of water resources by foreign companies and a subsequent doubling of water prices. On the 6th of August 2001, Banzer resigned from office after being diagnosed with cancer. He died less than a year later. Vice President Jorge Fernando Quiroga Ramirez completed the final year of his term. In the June 2002 national elections, former President Gonzalo Sanchez de Lozada, MNR, placed first with 22.5% of the vote, followed by cocoa advocate and native peasant leader Evo Morales, Movement Toward Socialism, MAS, with 20.9%. Current President, Evo Morales. A July agreement between the MNR and the fourth-place mayor, which had again been led in the election by former President Jaime Paz Zamora, virtually ensured the election of Sanchez de Lozada in the congressional runoff. And on 6 August he was sworn in for the second time. The MNR platform featured three overarching objectives: economic reactivation, and job creation, anti-corruption, and social inclusion. In 2003 the Bolivian gas conflict broke out. On the 12th of October 2003 the government imposed martial law in El Alto after 16 people were shot by the police and several dozen wounded in violent clashes. Faced with the option of resigning or more bloodshed, Sanchez de Lozada offered his resignation in a letter to an emergency session of Congress. After his resignation was accepted and his vice president, Carlos Mesa, invested, he left on a commercially scheduled flight for the United States. The country's internal situation became unfavorable for such political action on the international stage. After a resurgence of gas protests in 2005, Carlos Mesa attempted to resign in January 2005, but his offer was refused by Congress. On the 22nd of March 2005, after weeks of new street protests from organizations accusing Mesa of bowing to U.S. corporate interests, Mesa again offered his resignation to Congress, which was accepted on 10 June. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Eduardo Rodriguez, was sworn as interim president to succeed the outgoing Carlos Mesa. 2005 Morales' presidency and renationalization of petroleum assets. Evo Morales' inauguration as president. Evo Morales won the 2005 presidential election with 53.7% of the votes, an absolute majority, unusual in Bolivian elections. On the 1st of May 2006, Morales caused controversy when he announced his intent to renationalize Bolivian hydrocarbon assets. Fulfilling a campaign promise, on the 6th of August 2006, Morales opened the Bolivian Constituent Assembly to begin writing a new constitution aimed at giving more power to the indigenous majority. In August 2007, more conflicts arose in Sucre, as the city demanded the discussion of the seat of government inside the assembly, hoping the executive and legislative branches could return to the city, but the assembly and the government said this demand was overwhelmingly impractical and politically undesirable. In May 2008, Evo Morales was a signatory to the Anaja Constitutive Treaty of the Union of South American Nations. In the 2009 national general elections, Evo Morales was re-elected with 64.22% of the vote. His party, Movement for Socialism, also won a two-thirds majority in both houses of the National Congress. Geography: Bolivia is located in the central zone of South America, between 57 degrees 26-69 degrees 38 and 9 degrees 38-22 degrees 53, with an area of 1,098,581 square kilometers, 424,164 square miles. Bolivia is the world's 28th largest country, and the 5th largest country in South America, extending from the central Andes through part of the Gran Chaco Pantanland as far as the Amazon. The geographic center of the country is the so-called Puerto Estela, starport, on the Rio Grande, in Flor Chavez Province, Santa Cruz Department. The geography of the country exhibits a great variety of terrain and climates. Bolivia has a high level of biodiversity, considered one of the greatest in the world, as well as several ecoregions with ecological subunits such as the Altiplano, tropical rainforests, including Amazon rainforest, dry valleys, and the Chiquitania, which is a tropical savanna. These areas feature enormous variations in altitude, from an elevation of 6,542 meters, 21,463 feet, above sea level in Jama to nearly 70 meters, 230 feet, along the Paraguay River. Although a country of great geographic diversity, Bolivia has remained a landlocked country since the War of the Pacific. Puerto Saez, San Matías and Puerto Quijaro are located in the Bolivian Pantanal. Bolivia can be divided into 3 physiographic regions. The Andean region in the southwest spans 28% of the national territory, extending over 307,603 square kilometers, 118,766 square miles. This area is located above 3,000 meters, 9,800 feet, altitude and is located between 2 big Andean chains, the Cordillera Occidental, Western Range, and the Cordillera Central, Central Range, with some of the highest spots in the Americas such as the Nevado Jama, with an altitude of 6,542 meters, 21,463 feet, and the Illimani, at 6,462 meters, 21,201 feet. Also located in the Cordillera Central is Lake Titicaca, the highest commercially navigable lake in the world and the largest lake in South America. The lake is shared with Peru. Also in this region are the Altiplano and the Salar de Uyuni, which is the largest salt flat in the world and an important source of lithium. The Sub-Andean region in the center and south of the country is an intermediate region between the Altiplano and the eastern Llanos plain. This region comprises 13% of the territory of Bolivia, extending over 142,815 square kilometers, 55,141 square miles, and encompassing the Bolivian valleys and the Yungas region. It is distinguished by its farming activities and its temperate climate. The Llanos region in the northeast comprises 59% of the territory, with 648,163 square kilometers, 250,257 square miles. It is located to the north of the Cordillera Central and extends from the Andean foothills to the Paraguay River. It is a region of flatland and small plateaus, all covered by extensive rainforests containing enormous biodiversity. The region is below 400 meters, 1,300 feet, above sea level. Bolivia has 3 drainage basins. The first is the Amazon Basin, also called the North Basin, 724,000 square kilometers, 280,000 square miles / 66% of the territory. The rivers of this basin generally have big meanders which form lakes such as Murillo Lake in Panda Department. The main Bolivian tributary to the Amazon Basin is the Maima River, with a length of 2,000 kilometers, 1,200 miles, running north to the confluence with the Beni River, 1,113 kilometers, 692 miles, in length and the second most important river of the country. The Beni River, along with the Madeira River, forms the main tributary of the Amazon River. From east to west, the basin is formed by other important rivers, such as the Madeira de Dios River, the Orthon River, the Abuna River, the Yata River, and the Guapor River. The most important lakes are Rogaguado Lake, Rogagua Lake, and Jara Lake. The second is the Rio de la Plata Basin, also called the South Basin, 229,500 square kilometers, 88,600 square miles / 21% of the territory. The tributaries in this basin are in general less abundant than the ones forming the Amazon basin. The Rio de la Plata basin is mainly formed by the Paraguay River, Pilcomayo River, and Bamo River. The most important lakes are Ubraba Lake and Mandior Lake, both located in the Bolivian marshland. The third basin is the Central Basin, which is an endorheic basin, 145,081 square kilometers, 56,016 square miles / 13% of the territory. The Altiplano has large numbers of lakes and rivers that do not run into any ocean because they are enclosed by the Andean Mountains. The most important river is the Desaguadero River, with a length of 436 kilometers, 271 miles, the longest river of the Altiplano. It begins in Lake Titicaca and then runs in a southeast direction to Pupo Lake. The basin is then formed by Lake Titicaca, Lake Pupo, the Desaguadero River, and Great Salt Flats, including the Salar de Uyuni and Coipasa Lake. Geology. Mean annual precipitation in Bolivia. Bolivia map of Köppen climate classification. The geology of Bolivia comprises a variety of different lithologies as well as tectonic and sedimentary environments. On a synoptic scale, geological units coincide with topographical units. Most elementally, the country is divided into a mountainous western area affected by the subduction processes in the Pacific and an eastern lowlands of stable platforms and shields. Climate. Chacoltaya Ski Resort, La Paz Department. The climate of Bolivia varies drastically from one ecoregion to the other, from the tropics in the eastern Llanos to a polar climate in the western Andes. The summers are warm, humid in the east and dry in the west, with rains that often modify temperatures, humidity, winds, atmospheric pressure and evaporation, yielding very different climates in different areas. When the climatological phenomenon known as El Niño takes place, it causes great alterations in the weather. Winters are very cold in the west, and it snows in the mountain ranges, while in the western regions, windy days are more common. The autumn is dry in the non-tropical regions. Llanos, a humid tropical climate with an average temperature of 25 degrees Celsius, 77 degrees Fahrenheit. The wind coming from the Amazon rainforest causes significant rainfall. In May, there is low precipitation because of dry winds, and most days have clear skies. Even so, winds from the south, called zurazos, can bring cooler temperatures lasting several days. Altiplano, desert polar climates, with strong and cold winds. The average temperature ranges from 15 to 20 degrees Celsius. At night, temperatures descend drastically to slightly above 0 degrees Celsius, while during the day, the weather is dry and solar radiation is high. Ground frosts occur every month, and snow is frequent. Valleys and yungas. Temperate climate. The humid northeastern winds are pushed to the mountains, making this region very humid and rainy. Temperatures are cooler at higher elevations. Snow occurs at altitudes of 2,000 meters, 6,600 feet. Chaco. Subtropical semi-arid climate. Rainy and humid in January and the rest of the year, with warm days and cool nights. Issues with climate change. Bolivia is especially vulnerable to the negative consequences of climate change. 20% of the world's tropical glaciers are located within the country, and are more sensitive to change in temperature due to the tropical climate they are located in. Temperatures in the Andes increase by 0.1 degrees Celsius per decade from 1939 to 1998, and have begun to triple, 0.33 degrees Celsius, annually from 1980 to 2005. Causing glaciers to recede at an accelerated pace and create unforeseen water shortages in Andean agricultural towns. Farmers have taken to temporary city jobs when there is poor yield for their crops, while others have started permanently leaving the agricultural sector and are migrating to nearby towns for other forms of work. Some view these migrants as the first generation of climate refugees. Cities that neighbor agricultural land, like El Alto, face the challenge of providing services to the influx of new migrants. Because there is no alternative water source, the city's water source is now being constricted. Bolivia's government and other agencies have acknowledged the need to instill new policies battling the effects of climate change. The World Bank has provided funding through the Climate Investment Funds, CIF, and are using the Pilot Program for Climate Resilience, PPCR2, to construct new irrigation systems, protect riverbanks and basins, and work on building water resources with the help of indigenous communities. Bolivia has also implemented the Bolivian Strategy on Climate Change, which is based on taking action in these 4 areas, promoting clean development in Bolivia by introducing technological changes in the agriculture, forestry, and industrial sectors, aimed to reduce GHG emissions with a positive impact on development, contributing to carbon management in forests, wetlands and other managed natural ecosystems. Increasing effectiveness in energy supply and use to mitigate effects of GHG emissions and risk of contingencies. Focus on increased and efficient observations, and understanding of environmental changes in Bolivia to develop effective and timely responses. Biodiversity. Bolivia, with an enormous variety of organisms and ecosystems, is part of the like-minded megadiverse countries. Bolivia's variable altitudes, ranging from 90 to 6,542 meters, 295 to 21,463 feet, above sea level, allow for a vast biologic diversity. The territory of Bolivia comprises 4 types of biomes, 32 ecological regions, and 199 ecosystems. Within this geographic area there are several natural parks and reserves such as the Noel Kempff Mercado National Park, the Madidi National Park, the Tunari National Park, the Eduardo Avaro Andean Fauna National Reserve, and the Cayar del Gran Chaco National Park and Integrated Management Natural Area, among others. Bolivia boasts over 17,000 species of seed plants, including over 1,200 species of fern, 1,500 species of marcantiophytu and moss, and at least 800 species of fungus. In addition, there are more than 3,000 species of medicinal plants. Bolivia is considered the place of origin for such species as peppers and chili peppers, peanuts, the common beans, yucca, and several species of palm. Bolivia also naturally produces over 4,000 kinds of potatoes. Bolivia has more than 2,900 animal species, including 398 mammals, over 1,400 birds, about 14% of birds known in the world, being the 6th most diverse country in terms of bird species, 204 amphibians, 277 reptiles, and 635 fish, all freshwater fish, as Bolivia is a landlocked country. In addition, there are more than 3,000 types of butterfly, and more than 60 domestic animals. Bolivia has gained global attention for its law of the rights of Mother Earth, which accords nature the same rights as humans. A view from the mountain in El Source overlooking Samaipata, Bolivia. Politics and government. Main articles: Politics of Bolivia and Foreign Relations of Bolivia. The government building of the National Congress of Bolivia at the Plaza Murillo in central La Paz. Bolivia has been governed by democratically elected governments since 1982. Prior to that, it was governed by various dictatorships. Presidents Hernan Siles Zuazo, 1982-85, and Victor Paz Istancera, 1985-89. Began a tradition of ceding power peacefully, which has continued, although 2 presidents have stepped down in the face of popular protests: Gonzalo Sanchez de Lozada in 2003 and Carlos Mesa in 2005. Bolivia's multi-party democracy has seen a wide variety of parties in the presidency and parliament, although the Revolutionary Nationalist Movement, Nationalist Democratic Action, and the Revolutionary Left Movement predominated from 1985 to 2005. The current president is Evo Morales, the first indigenous Bolivian to serve as head of state. Morales' Movement for Socialism, political instrument for the sovereignty of the People's Party, was the first to win an outright presidential majority in 4 decades, doing so both in 2005 and 2009. The Constitution, drafted in 2006-07 and approved in 2009, provides for the balanced executive, legislative, judicial, and electoral powers, as well as several levels of autonomy. The traditionally strong executive branch tends to overshadow the Congress, whose role is generally limited to debating and approving legislation initiated by the executive. The judiciary, consisting of the Supreme Court and departmental and lower courts, has long been riddled with corruption and inefficiency. Through revisions to the Constitution in 1994,